Rawr. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the studentloanjustice.org live stream. I just got this mask. It's a shark mask, if you couldn't tell. I think it's highly appropriate to the student loan issue. There is, in fact, a student loan company in Indianapolis, Indiana called Premier Credit. They actually have a 4,000-gallon shark tank installed in the corporate headquarters of the lobby of their corporate headquarters in Indianapolis. So we are definitely swimming with the sharks, folks. For those of you who are new, welcome. We're glad that you found us. We are the oldest, largest, and pretty much only citizens group actually fighting for student loan justice. And what that meant for the first 15 years of our existence, as we did our interviews with like 60 Minutes and the New York Times and Los Angeles Times and NPR and PBS and Vice News and Fox News and Rolling Stone Magazine and many other places. Student loan justice meant very moderately the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. Founding fathers felt so strongly that the citizens should have bankruptcy rights, they called for it in the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. And they called for it ahead of the power to declare war and raise an army. Well, I am here to tell you now tonight, folks, this is a failed lending system with a capital F. Put a fork in it. It's fried. It's finished. It's finito. And we are now calling on the president, whether this president or the next, to cancel these loans. Lending systems fail, folks. That is a fact of life. This has been true going back hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. Most recently we had a big lending system failure with subprime home mortgages. I think most people would agree that was a failed lending system, right? Well, do you know what the default rate was for subprime home mortgages? It was 20%. 20%. We now know confidently, the data is there. And this data is actually very conservative. It's actually higher than this. But we can now say confidently and have backup from the Brookings Institution that the default rate for 2004 students, that's 16 years ago when the economy was far better. The default rate and they were only borrowing a third of what we are borrowing today. The default rate for 2004 students is 40%, actually higher if you look at how they got data for that study. It was a voluntary survey. Now, people with defaulted loans, they're not going to bend over backwards to fill out a voluntary survey about student loans. So clearly that is skewed low. So if a minimum of 40% of the people who graduated in 2004, or maybe didn't graduate, left school, if their default rate is 40% and people are borrowing triple that amount now, what do you think the default rate is for more recent borrowers? It's clearly 60, 70, 80% or even higher. So this student loan system, if subprime home mortgages failed, these student loans, I'm at a loss for words. If anybody can think of a better word than failed for what we're looking at now, please throw it up. By the way, if you have any questions or comments as we go forward, please throw them out. I'm very happy to respond to them in situ. We're going to talk about Joe Biden and stuff that he has said recently about student loans in a minute. But the first thing I want to talk about is a little bit, maybe, let's say, psychological. Now, normally, you will hear nothing from me but facts, figures, statistics that prove without a doubt that this is a failed lending system and we don't have to take it. But I'm a normal guy. I've got student loans. I know how everybody's feeling out there. And I know that this is a stressful thing to think about. You wake up, you're like, oh my God. You're trying to get to sleep at night. You're like, oh, my loans. I know. I get that. And here is one, and particularly when you're dealing with a problem where really the only recourse is to stand up and fight back against the federal government, that's a pretty daunting thing. And I know that a lot of people are losing a lot of sleep over it. But right now, here today, I'm telling you people, this is a failed lending system. Just before the pandemic, the director, recently resigned, of the federal student loan program told me personally that 80%, 4 out of 5, of all student loan borrowers were never going to be able to repay their loans. And that was before the pandemic. So, enough with the facts and figures. Let me just say, I get your pain and your frustration and your anxiety. And what I have found over many years of fighting this fight is that the one thing that makes me feel better, certainly about not paying my loans, is the fact that fighting this beast instead of feeding the beast is exactly morally, constitutionally, ethically the right thing to do. Now, I don't know about your all situation. My own personal loans, my loans start out at $35,000 or so. The last time I checked, I think I owed around $200,000. But I vowed many years ago that I would never, ever pay one dime back into these loans until at a minimum we get our constitutional protections back. And to be honest with you, I was never going to start throwing good money after bad anyhow, after my loans reached a certain point. So, yes, it is stressful. I agree. But the one thing that you can do that makes everything feel better is to fight, is to help us fight. We are on the right side of history. We are on the right side of logic and morality. And another thing that I'd want to put to you, just so you can hear it from somebody who knows. Repaying your student loans is not a morality test. Never was. The bad guys would like you to think that it is a morality test, right? They want to play your goodwill, your good faith against you and keep you trapped in the jaws of this big government predatory lending monstrosity. Well, I am here to tell you that is not true. Listen, people, we as a country, the citizens of this country, we haven't changed that much over the past, say, 40 years. We're probably, and as college students, we're probably about as responsible or as irresponsible as generations before us. We haven't changed much. Quite frankly, I think that we've become, as a peoples, probably a little more responsible over the years. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we really haven't changed that much. What has changed is not us. What has changed is the lending system that is funding college. They took away bankruptcy protections beginning in the 1970s, and there was never a good reason for them to do that then. It was a fait accompli around 1998, and then in 2005, they had the chutzpah, the political muscle, to get bankruptcy rights removed from private student loans. And I can tell you, the founding fathers are rolling over in their grave about this. This is a blatant constitutional violation. Nobody wants to file for bankruptcy. It's a terrible thing to have to do. But we have got to have that power on our side. And the founders knew this. Remember, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Robert Morris, and on and on and on, many other founders. They were being savaged under predatory debt to British banks and merchants. John Adams himself said there are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword, but the other is by debt. So this is not new, folks. The founding fathers are on our side, and we owe it to the founders, the hundreds or thousands or millions of people who have fought and died for our freedom. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the tens or even hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps. So it is cathartic to help, maybe as an army of one, if that's how you roll. If you're a lone wolf, a lone ranger, well then grab your battle rattle and go to it. But with us, certainly in concert with us, in coordination with us, in this group, maybe with your state chapter, fighting this fight makes you feel better. We have every moral, ethical, constitutional, common sense. We have the high ground, no matter how you look at this. Now, you might feel bad about getting your loans canceled. That's a natural reaction. I get that. And what I would say to you is don't. That's exactly what the bad guys who are threatening the conquering and enslavement of this entire country, certainly 50 million people of this country, which is a lot. That's like 1 in 5 of all adults. That's what they want you. They want you to feel bad. Now, look what we've done going back to many years, decades ago. Debt cancellation has been a thing in this country for years. Look at the bailouts in 2008. Now, they didn't bail out the borrowers on that. They bailed out the banks rather than the borrowers. And I think that's exactly the wrong thing to do. You know, with just a fraction of the bailout money that we threw out in 2008, we could have paid off damn near everybody's mortgage in this country, subprime and not. So that's exactly the wrong thing to do. But, you know, let's look at more recently. Let's look to just the past 4 months. We have doled out loans to businesses across the country that do not have to be repaid. PPP loans do not have to be repaid. And all of those loans add to the national debt. The president, however, can cancel all student loans, all federal student loans, certainly 85% of all student loans. And he could do this without requiring 1 penny in tax money from Congress, without having to cut any other programs, without adding 1 dime to the national debt. This has to happen. We have not changed. What has changed is the lending system. And you know, the founding fathers are looking down at us and saying, how did our citizens get so weak? Why are they so afraid of their own government? This is not liberty. This is tyranny. So, and let me tell you, the people that got those PPP loans, they don't feel bad. I know them. You know them too. Ask them. They don't feel bad. Ask the 43,000 millionaires and billionaires who got a $1.6 million tax stimulus over the past 4 months. Ask them if they feel bad. I got a little secret for you. They don't. They don't feel bad at all. And remember that by paying into this, by feeding this sinister, vicious, nationally threatening big government student loan beast, you're only feeding the beast. You're making it harder for the rest of us. Now, right now today, almost nobody is paying on their student loans. What needs to happen is that nobody ever again pays anything, certainly, on their federal student loans. That's what has to happen. You know, a time comes when government gets just too big, too menacing, and too threatening for its own good, and it has to be put down. It has to be taken to the bath and drowned in the tub. It's got to be taken out back and shot. It's got to be euthanized. That's a good word. And we are at that point. In fact, I would argue that we were at that point 5, maybe even 10 years ago. You know, that we as a group waited so long to simply call a spade and call for the cancellation of this lending system. I maybe fault myself because I, like you, I don't like the criticism. I don't like those knee-jerk people that say, you borrowed the money, you should pay your debt, and you should, why should the taxpayers be bailing you out? That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. ridiculous. We've thrown $7 trillion into Afghanistan and Iraq over the past 20 years since we've been doing studentloanjustice.org. During that time, something like $1.4 trillion has been added onto our backs. We don't have to take this. We must not take this. We must not only resist, but we must reject. Certainly the federal student loan system. Private loans are a little bit more tricky, and we are fighting, don't get me wrong, very strongly for the return of bankruptcy protections to the loans that the president cannot cancel directly by executive order. But you need to get off your ass and you need to help us. The tide is turning as we speak. You know, just today I was interviewed by a television station in New York, and that's probably going to be going on the news tonight. By my own pluck, got a few seconds in on C-SPAN this morning. But you know, in the past 3 weeks, let's say in the past 4 months, we've been featured in the Wall Street Journal, on Vice News, Yahoo News. We've been interviewed and been featured. Fox News, Fox News Business, Newsweek, Heavy.com, I think Rolling Stone. When was that? Yeah, I think it was Rolling Stone just a few months ago. We've been kicking ass. Let's just put it that way. And now that we're in this pandemic, the lending system is toast. Get used to that fact. Failed, finito, toast. Get used to that fact. And by the way, if you have any questions or comments, please throw them out. I would love to hear anything you have to say about any and all of this. There's going to be a vice presidential debate happening in about an hour and 40 minutes. I wanted to talk just briefly to you about Joe Biden. So we've been trumping Donald Blitz. No, we've been blitzing Donald Trump over the past couple days. We are going to continue to blast Trump and blast Biden. Right now, the current state of things is Joe Biden needs to pledge to return bankruptcy protections to student loans by executive order in order to get our endorsement. Over the past couple of days, Biden has been promising that he's going to extinguish the loans for people who went to public schools that earn less than $125,000, and that he's going to extinguish, I think he's saying either $10,000 or up to $10,000 for everybody with student loans. And that sounds really good. Joe Biden, given that Donald Trump has said nothing, done nothing meaningful on student loans, that is going to grab the 44 million distressed student loan borrowers in this country. So if Donald Trump does nothing between now and the election, or maybe between now and people start sending their ballots in, I don't see any way that Donald Trump can win this election. The student loan issue is that strong. 55 million voters out there with student loans co-signed on them. 80% of them, 44 million voters, distressed over their student loans. Joe Biden is going to grab many, probably most of those votes just on the weight of what he said today. But folks, I am here to tell we are a nonpartisan group, right? We only care who is actually fighting for us and who is not. And I am here to tell you that Joe Biden is, pardon my French, but I have to say, completely full of shit. I've looked at Joe Biden's plan. I've talked to Joe Biden's campaign manager many times. I know I myself have sat eyeball to eyeball with Joe Biden for hours in Iowa for 6 months. And I can tell you that Joe Biden has no intentions of doing anything by executive order. And you know how I know this? Because I have asked them to pledge to, at a minimum, return bankruptcy protections to student loans. I have asked them to pledge to actually cancel certainly federally owned student loans by executive order. The fact that they have not yet done this is proof positive that it won't happen. What Biden is really saying is that if Congress brings legislation to his desk claiming to be canceling student loans, he will sign it. If Congress brings legislation to his desk repealing that one line of federal code that makes student loans different from all other loans in bankruptcy proceedings, then he will sign it. Joe Biden is not going to go out of his way. And here's the critical thing that you need to know. Congress is unable, unwilling, probably, but unable to pass any law that will actually cancel student loans. Congress is stuck with these pay-go rules, where every dollar in student loans that they cancel, they need to raise that dollar somehow. So they need to raise taxes, they need to cut other programs. And, we've been doing this for 15 years, folks. I can tell you that there is no way on God's green earth that Congress is going to pass anything like that. Anything they might pass will be a dumbed down, watered down, woefully underfunded plan to cancel student loans. And it will be administered by a Department of Education, which absolutely and positively has zero desire, zero intentions of canceling any loans. Look at the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. That's a loan cancellation program. With the percentage of people who are actually succeeding in that, it's less than 5%. Last I checked, it was less than 1%. They have any number of ways to bureaucratize any lending cancellation / forgiveness / repayment program to death. That's what they've always done. And that's what they will continue to do. So Joe Biden's pledge is completely untrustworthy. We will not be endorsing him if this is the best he has to offer us. We will loudly and proudly endorse the Green Party again, like we did 4 years ago, if we have to. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope Joe Biden comes around and actually gives us something that we can trust. And that is a pledge to either cancel student loans or certainly at the minimum, return bankruptcy protections to student loans by executive order. Notice how in the past 2 days, Joe Biden's gone out of his way to say, I'm going to extinguish student loans. He has not mentioned bankruptcy and student loans in the same sentence. In fact, I've never heard him, and I've been around the guy for hours and hours and hours. I've never heard him mention bankruptcy and student loans in the same sentence. Even when I question him publicly in front of a crowd of probably 600 people, he wouldn't even mention bankruptcy by name. He wouldn't mention bankruptcy and student loans in the same sentence. He was instrumental in getting bankruptcy gone from student loans in 2000, from private student loans in 2005. We cannot trust Joe Biden any further than we can bowl him. And yeah, sure, maybe most of the people out there will be completely tricked and swayed by his language. And, that I think is probably going to happen at this point. But the truth matters, folks, and I hope that you're a little smarter than that. We have to push both of the candidates. Now, right now, the onus is on Donald Trump. Hey, we've got some comments here. Let me just get to them real quick. Angel Lee says, Biden is a buffoon. If you qualify that with something about student loans, I would agree with you totally. We don't take partisan shots at candidates. We are a nonpartisan group, by the way. We can trust neither party. We trust both parties as far as we can throw them. And that's not very far. We tell the truth. We push both parties. And we've been around long enough that we can read between the lines, folks. And we can see the reality through all the nice, pleasant-sounding rhetoric. Zero intentions is right. He won't. Biden is a puppet. Yep. All those things are true. With regards to student loans, Biden certainly is a puppet. When he was senator in Delaware, in fact, when he was vice president, Sally Mae, first of all, Biden was instrumental in getting bankruptcy protections taken away from private loans in 2005. Well, after that happened, and he became vice president, Sally Mae relocated its corporate headquarters to, give you one guess, Delaware. And Joe Biden and Albert Lord, then he was either CEO or may possibly have been chairman of the board of Sally Mae at that point. They did a joint press conference together, a joint interview. They were literally rubbing shoulders on CNBC. I don't remember the exact date, but it was, you can Google it, when Sallie Mae moved their corporate headquarters to Delaware. And you could just tell these men knew each other well. You know, I've heard rumors that Joe Biden plays golf on Albert Lord's private 18-hole golf course, and I don't doubt that for one single minute. So, folks, we have to keep pushing Biden to do the right thing and give us something that we can trust. Otherwise, we will be endorsing the Green Party on October 20th. That is the drop-dead date that I gave his campaign manager, Greg Schultz, who we have a pretty good line of communication with. So they know what we want. And if you like Joe Biden, I strongly recommend that you contact the Biden campaign. You can go to joebiden.com and do the contact thing and tell them very strongly that we're not buying it and that they absolutely need to make the very same pledge that Elizabeth Warren made, and that is that on day one as president, they would issue an executive order calling on the Department of Education and its contractors to stop opposing student loan borrowers in bankruptcy court. Now, if you like President Trump, then, oh my goodness, you had better go as quickly as you can to whitehouse.gov/contact, or maybe real Donald Trump via Twitter. And you better tell him, because I don't know that he knows. This issue is in play, and he is going to get absolutely screwed. He's going to lose this election. Even if he was going to win by a landslide, all things being equal beforehand, 44 million voters is enough to completely annihilate that landslide, and a landslide victory, and turn into a landslide loss. So I would hope. And we have good contact with the Trump people as well. And so hopefully they're listening to us. Hopefully they're being listened to. And this is pretty much the highest echelons of the Trump administration, if not the campaign. They have to do something meaningful if they want to overcome this massive voter avalanche that is going to go to Joe Biden. They've got to. They've just got to. This is too many voters to kiss off. This is the biggest voter bonanza in recent U.S. history. In fact, I would say this is the biggest unclaimed voter bonanza in modern U.S. history, certainly in my lifetime. 4 years ago, we had nobody to vote for. Not Trump, not Hillary. Neither candidate was even mentioning bankruptcy at all. Certainly, I don't think, no, neither candidate was mentioning student loan cancellation. We were nowhere. We were Bambi in the woods. We were in the wilderness. We had no one real to vote for. This time around, Joe Biden is at least mouthing the words bankruptcy, not actually mouthing, because as I said, he's never said bankruptcy and student loans in the same sentence. But on his website, in writing, they are saying that they would support bankruptcy, the return of bankruptcy protection to student loans. On their website, in writing, they are saying that they will fight for, or they will eliminate student debt. So the gauntlet has been thrown down. The glass ceiling, or the glass wall has been shattered. This issue is now in play. So both parties cannot take us for granted like they did 4 years ago. And right now, Joe Biden is the one that is at least sounding good. And regardless of what I might think, do, say, think, or feel, unless I'm on Top Story, 60 Minutes, and like the front page of every paper for like a week straight saying what I told you tonight, I don't think that message is going to get through to the overwhelming majority of student loan borrowers out there in the country. So, you heard it here first. Donald Trump cannot win this election right now today. He cannot. Because the 44 million people who are distressed on their student loans, 40% of them are independent. 20% of them are Republican. Probably about 30% are Democrats. But that huge middle, that is a meaningful, a good sounding campaign promise about student loan cancellation or, to a lesser extent, the return of bankruptcy protections, that is going to move those 44 million people. I mean, there's even going to be a lot of people that right now otherwise would have voted for Trump that are going to be like, you know what? I like Trump, but ooh, these loans, man, I got to go with Biden on this one. Sorry, Trump. Sorry, got to do it. These loans have been like an albatross around my neck for too many years. They're threatening my family, etc. So that's just a fact. And don't shoot the messenger if you like Trump. I don't mind Trump. I don't mind him at all. I don't mind Joe Biden as men. I've been around him long enough to know. But as I said, we are an apolitical, nonpartisan group. All we care about is student loans. And hey, Angel Lee says, Biden will never win, and putting all your eggs in that basket is setting yourself up for disappointment. He can't do anything because he will never be president, so you are wasting your time trying to get this attention or that of the Dems. Trump will win by a landslide, and that is why you have to focus on the party who is in power. Well, people ask me what I think about Donald Trump. And here's what I think about Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is the president. I think Donald Trump could cancel these loans tomorrow. But knowing what I know about student loans, Angel, listen to me. There are 44 million voters in the country who are losing sleep over their loans. Now, Donald Trump won the election last time with 60 million votes. And I think Hillary got like 3 million votes more than him. So it was a close race, we can all agree. And last election, hold on 1 minute. I've got to plug my computer in. Last election, I think that we can all agree, Trump pulled that election out by the skin of his teeth. And that is just true. So all things being equal, if you think that Donald Trump can win without saying or doing one thing on student loans, you're wrong. You're dead wrong. Don't fool yourself. Voters, particularly the distressed 44 million student loan voters, they vote their pocketbooks, or at least they will this time around. That is how seriously people take the student loan issue who are distressed on them. So absolutely, we're focusing on Trump. We're focusing on Biden. We're focusing on both. And right now, the ball is in Donald Trump's court. Hold on a minute. I've really got to plug this thing in. I'm about to lose all my power here. Where is this stupid? Okay. Bear with me, folks. Almost there. All right, let's do this. Okay, much better. So what I would say to you, Angel, is clearly you don't like Biden. I get that. I understand that. I appreciate that greatly. And far be it for me to disagree with you. But what I will say is that this student loan issue absolutely is absolutely going to determine the next president. And right now, Donald Trump has nothing. He's done nothing. He's said nothing. There is no way that Donald Trump can win this presidential election if he does nothing and says nothing on student loans, particularly on